So we're going to start our project, and you're going to need a few supplies. You're going to want to have your plastic bag handy to wrap up what you work on. You're definitely going to want to have your clay. We're going to be making 2 pinch pots about the same size to create kind of our form for the piggy bank. You're going to want to have your tools. Specifically, you're really going to want to have your toothpick and potentially a popsicle stick to help you smooth these together. So I'm going to set those out, and I'm going to have a wear board down. I'm going to work on top of this. That way I have a space that can easily be cleaned. Other things that you'll need is it's not a bad idea to have a cup full of water. This should not be a drinking cup. You can use your yogurt cup from the watercolor painting unit or an old plastic cup that nobody's going to drink out of because this will potentially get clay, and we don't want to mix clay with our food. So before I start, I'm just going to kind of make it simple. I'm going to take my plastic bag and I'm going to place it on top of my wear board. I'm just going to set it kind of over top of this. Sometimes I'll even open it up and wrap it the opposite way. This is going to give me a workspace that has plastic, so it's not getting on the other areas, but it's also allowing me to kind of have something that I can fold up over my project when I'm done. Then I'm going to go to my plastic bag. I'm going to carefully unzip it, and I'm going to take out my 4 pounds of clay. Now we're going to break this up into some smaller pieces, so you're going to have to use your hands. What we want to do is we want to make 2 small spheres about the size of a tennis ball or your fist. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of pull off some of this clay. This will be about 1/3 or less, so let's say that's a good chunk of clay, and I'm going to pull off some more. I'm going to leave about 1/3. So you're going to break this into about thirds. If you're having some trouble getting your clay pulled apart, you can take a popsicle stick down through and kind of wedge that apart. That will help. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make 2 spheres. So these are currently kind of in these chunky locations. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pound them into a sphere. But before I do that, I'm going to take any extra clay off my popsicle stick. I'm going to slide it off. I'm going to put my other clay together. We're going to use this to add our sculptural elements later. I'm going to put that in that bag. I'm going to squeeze the air out, zip it tight, and roll it over. Set that off to the side. Won't leave my popsicle stick. I'll set that there. All right, so making a sphere, what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of pound it into itself, and you're going to rotate it around. So clay can be manipulated just by adding your hands. So just going to kind of pound this, and I'm using the palm of my hand, and I'm either tapping the edges or I'm kind of sliding. So I'm just trying to make a sphere. And you want to use pressure because that's going to break up any air bubbles. So I'm going around, kind of roll it between your hands really quickly. And if your clay feels a little stiff, just add some water to it. That might mean that it's gotten dry. So I'm just going to go through, I'm kind of tapping this. Now you may notice as you work with clay, your hands might get a little dry. Clay will tend to pull the moisture out of your hands. So it's not uncommon to need to, after washing your hands, add some lotion to your skin. And you'll notice one of the things I'm doing too is I'm going through, and if there's big cracks or kind of overlapping pieces, I'm trying to put pressure with my thumb and smooth those out. So I'm just trying to make some spheres to get started. So I'll roll this around and tap. So I'm going to make 2 spheres, and then we're going to talk about what to do next. So I've rolled 2 spheres. They're about the same size, about the size of my fist or the size of a tennis ball. What we're going to do is we're going to turn these into 2 small pinch cups or pinch bowls or pinch pots that are hollow, and then we're going to place them together to kind of make like a hollow chocolate egg type shape. But we don't want to eat this. So what you do to create a pinch pot is you start with a sphere, and then you grab your water and you put your thumb down in it. Anytime you work with adding or subtracting the clay, you're going to use water. Water acts as a lubricant. So what I've done is I've made a sphere, And now I'm going to find the center of that sphere, and I'm going to put my thumb down into it. Just going to push it down. Now, what you want to do is be aware of how deep your thumb is going. So if I look at my thumb here, I can put them kind of side by side. My thumb should be about right there. What I want to do is I want to go to the point where there's just about a pinky's width at the bottom. So I need to go a little further. I can do this by spinning. Now you will notice that clay will crack as you work through it. All you need to do is take your thumb and smooth over that. So now I'm like Tom Horner. I've got my thumb stuck in the plum. It's in the middle. And what I want to do is I want to create walls for my pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thumb and my finger and I'm going to pinch together and pull out. So I'm squeezing with my thumb and my finger. And I'm going to do this the whole way around. Now, if you're having some challenge, if your clay is pretty hard, you can do this on the ground and rotate it around. I often use both hands for this, but I'm squeezing it. And even if I'm getting big cracks, I'm just trying to compress those down. Our goal is to make it so we have an even width on the outside of this pinch pot. So what we're ideally looking for is walls that are about the width of a pinky. Going around, it's not going to look perfect. I'm just kind of squeezing and compressing that clay right now. And you don't want to go too thin. You can always go thinner, but just start out trying to squeeze it out. And right now I'm taking my thumb and I'm sliding it up on the inside to try to remove some of that texture. So I'm starting at the bottom and I'm kind of pulling it up through. And I want to avoid areas that are too thin. Now I have a thin spot right here. It's a little bit thinner than I want it to be. What I can do is I can take my fingers and kind of slide that clay all around. Just going to kind of smooth this out. And I'm looking for where any cracks are developing, especially along my lip. I'm just taking my thumb and I'm smoothing it. The big thing with a pinch pot is you don't want it to get so thin that the top gets pointy. It's okay to push down and flatten it out. Again, you want it to be about the width of your pinky. And if it's thicker in some areas, you're just going to take your thumb and finger and kind of slide over. Just trying to smooth this out so I don't have many creases. And I'm getting it as uniform as possible. So I'm going to take some time, I'm going to go around, I'm going to smooth it out. If you're having a hard time, you can always take your fingers, always keep them on the inside. And you can take a popsicle stick on the outside and just kind of move some of that clay around. End up with some extra clay, just make a small pile. And I'm just going to try to smooth the outside and the inside of this pot so it's nice and even. I often find that the widest part of my thumb works the best. So I'm going to refine this and make a second one, and then I'm going to talk about how to attach them to make the body of your bank. So now we've made our pinch pots. We've tried to make them about the same size. So I kept kind of comparing these to see if the width was about the same on them. They've gotten hollowed out. They're about the width of a pinky, and I've tried to smooth out as many cracks as I can. Now what we're going to do is we're going to attach these. So you really want to make sure this seam is flat. So notice I'm going around with my thumb, I'm kind of smoothing things out because we're going to scratch and attach these. And that is going to give us kind of like a hollow egg. And the hollowness is going to be the part of the form that can hold whatever your bank or storage container is going to have. So I've got some ledges that are a little bit taller than the others, so I kind of pull those over. And you can even kind of tap it on your plastic and get some flat edges. It doesn't need to be perfect at this stage. We're going to be doing a lot of adjusting. The big thing that it needs to be is about the same width and not too thick. And a good way to check your thickness is you can take a toothpick and you can take it down into the bottom, push, and then slide your finger to it. So my toothpick has gone through, and then my finger touched it, I pull it out, and that's about my thickness. You really don't want any clay thicker than your thumb. So if it's too thick down there, you can just push it and smooth it out. There's kind of a happy medium in clay. It's somewhere between your pinky and your thumb. Any thicker, and it's going to take a long time to dry out, and it could potentially blow up. So this is going to be the last time we see the full inside of our pinch pot. So I'm going through, I'm really smoothing it out. I want to make sure I don't have any big cracks in there because I'm not going to be able to come back in with it. So I'm using my fingers, I'm sliding them from side to side, I'm bringing them up from the top to the bottom. I'm making sure I don't have cracks. And to do that, you really got to spin it around. You can't just look from what's right in front of you. And this whole time, I'm using my fingers, I'm trying to feel, okay, that area feels a little thin, so I'm not going to be putting clay into it. I'm going to be sliding clay over. Well, I am going to be sliding clay into it. I'm not going to pull from it. So again, I'm just kind of checking these areas, smoothing it out. So those are pretty well refined, and I want to put them together. So the first part of the scratch and attach process is we're just going to take our toothpick and we're going to scratch, scratch, scratch the top. Doesn't need to be perfect. What we're doing is we're making these grooves kind of like Velcro, and sometimes I'll do like a hatch and then a cross hatch over top of it. And the reason why is because textured surface, like your knuckles to your knuckles, will stick together better than a smooth surface, like your palm to palm. So we want to create this like Velcro textured surface so the clay really goes into each other. We're trying to make it one form. So hatching, cross hatching. So these are our scratch, our scoring, and I'm going to come in, I'm going to add some water to make that slip. So I've got my cup of water here off to the side. I'm adding a good bit. Now if you're getting rid of the marks, it's okay. I always add the marks so that the slip goes down into those grooves, and then I scratch it again. So you kind of do like a scratch Oreo. You scratch, you add slip, and then you scratch again. So I'm getting a lot of water on here. I'm slipping that up. And then I'm going to come back in, I'm going to scratch one last time. And again, lots of marks, different directions help. You really want to rough it up. Toothpick's ideal for this. This is one of the most important steps, so really don't skimp. Okay, scratch and attach. We're going to attach them together. So I'm going to take one of my pinch pots, I'm going to flip it over, I'm going to squeeze them together. I'm going to kind of push them together. Now you have this seam, and it's not perfect. So what you need to start doing is sliding the clay over. And don't worry, you're going to be able to come back in and adjust it, even if your form gets kind of goofy, even if your plastic is sticking to it. So what I'm trying to do is smooth these two areas together. Now, if you have big gaps, like right here, I have a gap. I'm going to go back into my bag. I'm going to pull out a little bit of clay. I'm going to roll a little coil in my hands. So I'm kind of moving it back and forth. I'm going to put that over that area. And I'm going to smooth out with that. So at this stage, it's not pretty. We're just kind of creating our hollow form, and we're going in and we're trying to attach them. And just be patient. It's going to probably take a little bit longer than you anticipate, but you really don't want any cracks here. One thing I will sometimes do is I'll move it away if I'm working on a flat surface. I might tap it. And then I'll see, okay, I got a crack there. Got to come through. Smooth this out. Now the clay, as you add water, it's going to get soft. It's going to be harder to manipulate. Be patient. It will dry out. It won't be this soft the whole time. It's going to firm up into that leather hard. But I'm just going around, attaching, I'm pulling clay from the side of my project. And I'm putting these together. Again, once I get those cracks done, I'm using my thumb to go over the entire surface. I'm really smoothing the clay out at diagonals. Trying to fill those in. And if I keep having cracks in some of these areas, kind of compressing them into each other, and it's okay to really handle this clay. I'm going, okay, I keep seeing cracks form there, add some more clay. Patch it in. That's what you want to do. Smooth that out, really seam it together. So not a bad idea to have your other bag of clay right by you. Smoothing this out. Really trying to avoid cracks. We don't want cracks at this point. So put some pressure on it. Smooth it out. Take your time. Be patient. As the clay is exposed to the air, it's going to firm up. And that's what we want. We're going to put this together. Try to make it one though. Okay. So now I'm just going to kind of tap around the edges, trying to compress it, checking for cracks one last time, and then I'm going to wrap it. Now, since this clay is pretty wet to begin with, I'm just going to set it back on my plastic. I'm going to look around for any cracks. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set it out. I'm going to let it dry till it firms up. But then whenever you're done, you really want to make sure you pull that plastic up and over. So I'm pulling it from under the wear board and I'm wrapping it tight. There's no air here. See, the plastic is touching that clay. I'm pulling it good and tight, and I lift it up and I put the plastic under it. And that's going to keep it from getting air to it. Think about you're trying to store something that you don't want to get stale. You want that plastic to be good and close to it. So I'm going to let this sit and just kind of be where it's at. I'll tackle any of the challenges with cracks later. But I put those two pinch pots together. I've got my main bank form. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about adding sculptures to it and removing some of those details.